Watcher people, welcome to this week's Sunday sermon. I hope you're all doing all right out there, whatever you're up to on this beautiful Sunday morning. So this week's newsletter, this week's Sunday sermon and this week's MYGA is called The Great Awakening for Dummies. I hope that's not received too divisively. It's only a joke, come on, don't get your knickers in a twist. But there's some truth to it as well, right? You know, what's that saying? There's a saying that says there is no truer word than said in jest, or something along those lines. So there is some truth in it, you know, like there are an element of our world you could call dummies. Well, I mean, it's not fair to call them dummies, but there are people out there that have got so much government propaganda stuffed in their fucking ears that it's impossible for them to be able to see what's really going on. And I mean, there's loads of variables as to why that is, right? You know, I feel that very often the old thingy-majigger, it's put something into people's bodies and affected their brains in a way that is perhaps keeping them locked into the illusion. It's keeping the veil across reality that we can see. I mean, tap water, fluoride, mainstream media, devices, smart meters, Wi-Fi routers, telecommunications towers, smart dust, nanoparticles. There's probably lots of things that have been created probably with a much more advanced infrastructure, a much more advanced effect than we know is having on people, to keep them dumbed down, to keep them under the illusion. And sometimes I feel like, well, what's the fucking point, Danny boy? Because it feels like for such a long time we've been saying this, right? Because like I was fortunate enough to have a very, very significant awakening of my own in my early 20s. You're probably thinking that was only a couple of years ago, Danny. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And my transmission throughout life in general has been sharing that awakening. And of course, like with the whole pandemic, it was almost propelled the awakening then. It was amplified, where so many people were confronted with discomfort that there was so much information being shared as to who's pulling the strings behind the shadows. You know, who's holding the resources of our world to keep us all enslaved and imprisoned. And so that was the very positive part of the pandemic, that it got people asking questions. You know, people, a lot of their lives, they just were living in a daydream. And I suppose to a certain degree, even though how much I knew about the world, I still wasn't practicing as much as I would have liked to until the pandemic forced me into some uncomfortable realizations, and then having to make drastic changes in my life, which have all turned out rather positive, which is what often happens, right? Through discomfort, we find out a deeper meaning about existence and about reality. And then very often we're able to then hear that nagging calling that has been going on in our subconscious for our entire lives, and we're finally in a place to answer it. And so I feel like that was an incredibly positive thing, and I'm always saying that, right? Like, you know, that this time we're living in, it does feel very positive, because people are en masse are waking up to different areas and different layers of this incredibly sophisticated psyop that we live in. And so, like, one of the things for myself is that I've been a poignant voice on social media to be able to try to offer people a different perspective in my own confrontational way. And sometimes you feel like, well, if they don't fucking get it now, what's it going to take? And I suppose that's because we've become it's become second nature to us, this whole understanding of the world, right? This whole way of seeing the world and being knowledgeable about really what's going on. It's become second nature to us because we've just, we almost take it for granted that how much we know. And then you're sort of like, well, if they don't get it now, and then that element can sometimes breed almost like a feeling of frustration, impatience, but then almost another little bit bleeds in is this sort of superiority that we kind of, we know more. And of course, to a certain degree, you could say there's some truth in that. But we're all just finding out things every day ourselves, right? About ourselves, about the world, about our place in the world and all this stuff. Like, it's all just happening, in this big sort of blobby mess. So I don't feel like anyone's ever that further ahead or knows more. It's just a case of perhaps that we've got a different perspective that could be lent to those that are still not able to achieve that fresh perspective on the world. So then I kind of feel like, well, that's kind of, that's us being in service, isn't it? Like to try and reach people who are perhaps still stuck in the illusion. And I feel that, like, you've got obviously different people. There's some people out there that I look at and I look at their eyes and they look dead. They really look dead. They don't even look like they're there anymore. Those old sayings of like the light's on but nobody's in. They ain't even got any fucking light. The lights are not even on and there's nobody in. It's just a derelict fucking vessel. It's empty, is what I would say. And they're often the people with that look are the ones that are parroting and doubling down on the mainstream propaganda that they've been spoon-fed. And so, like, I think if you had a fucking claw hammer and you banged them on the head, you still wouldn't be able to get through to them. I really feel that some people are not supposed to wake up. They're not supposed to remember what they are. And I always think about Ram Dass, and he says about when someone's still stuck in it, and he goes, "You're going round again, buddy." Like they've got to go round again, And I think many of us, I don't think this might be our last time of going round, which is quite liberating consideration in itself. And I feel like, even though it's quite sad, that you see human beings are void of that light, of that divinity, they're still playing a part, right? Because ultimately they've been infected by that other source to a point where they've become the physicalization of that other source. And so once they leave, I would imagine that would mean that there's some kind of transmutation happening in our reality, and they're taking something with them into the void. I know it's only speculation, but isn't that what all life is? And then there's the people. So just to say about those people, like the ones who have, I feel like are just dead eyes. I wouldn't waste my time arguing with them. I get a real sense of sort of like, there's no point. I'm not going to waste my energy. So I'm very quick to sort of move on from that. But then you've got people that I feel that are asking the right questions, or are pissed off enough about certain aspects of society that they're starting to see through the illusion. And once they've started to see through the illusion, I feel that then through very gentle inquiry, we're able to pose sort of questions that might able to get them to see the big picture and not just be taken up the garden path by one very one-dimensional approach. Like you could say that is like, it's all Islam, it's all the Muslims, or it's all fucking, I don't know, it's the left, or it's the right, or it's that, or it's this. And I feel like very often that's what happens, right? People get some sort of sense of sort of like, oh, fuck me, it's all unjust, and it's all unfair. And then they're taken with that feeling emotionally into this one-dimensional approach, which is just another rabbit hole that leads nowhere. And I feel that asking questions that might then trigger a deeper understanding of what's actually going on in our reality is a way for us to be able to give or to invite people to take a different perspective. And because that's the thing, right, is that like if we're sitting here and we're talking very existentially in a way that is quite abstract, because that's the conversation often, like it is very abstract, our reality and our dimensions and like what we are. You know, on one level you could say that it's incredibly simplistic, but to people who haven't been able to connect with that part of themselves, the divinity in themselves, I think that stuff might be just a bridge too far at the moment. And it would be more of a productive, practical, pragmatic approach would be to ask questions that gift a different perspective. Because we want people, like I was talking to someone the other day and we were talking about like how we sort of speak to people and how we're trying to often help people, support people in seeing what they really are and seeing the world in its most truthful way. And I said, like, some of the language I even find myself using sometimes is like probably challenging for people that I would say are from my background. Like I said in the newsletter, is like fucking John down the white art. Is he gonna, if I start talking about multi-dimensional beings of light, I think I've lost him, you know. But if I was to say to him, he's like, hold on a minute, mate, right? We just had, not so long ago, we just had the release of the Epstein files and how there are an incredible amount of prominent people in the public arena, household names, that are on that Epstein list. And of course, people are going to go, yeah, but you know, they only went on a plane with him, or they was only seen at a party with him. I'm like, listen, like, if you're on that list and you're at those parties, you're on those planes, you're fucking in it. Do you know what I mean? I'm not on that fucking list. Are you on that list? Do you know anyone like normal, common person, common man, common woman on that list? No, of course you don't. Because it's the higher echelons of society, it's the self-styled elites, it's those parasitic cunts that are on the lists. Because they're all in the club. And the club is full of the most abhorrent, evil noncery you could ever come across. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of it has completely gone under. You could even go as far to say that's why we're seeing so much attention and focus being put on the Israel-Iran or Israel-US-Iran conflict. Because it's taken the attention and the focus off of that damning list that implicates everyone, like politicians, royals, fucking celebrities, sports stars, CEOs. You know, they're all on it. It's all the same people. It all comes back to the same people. So my question would be, is that if we look at something like that and we say, like, are we okay with that? That would be the question that I feel that any common man or woman would be able to get behind. But is that okay with you? that the most vulnerable in our world, innocent children, are being treated like that? Is that okay? Is it okay that the justice systems around the world are so compromised that there is no justice for these self-styled elites, these parasites? There's no justice. And the people who are supposed to bring them to justice, i.e. the police force, they are willing participants in the cover-up, the scandal of all of these prominent members, and the transparency and the clarity coming down into the common arena. Is that okay with you? Because that's not okay with me. It's really not okay with me. And I feel that when we're able to sort of bring it back, bring the conversation back to stuff that's tangible, then evidently what we end up doing is we end up looking at the same people that on those lists are behind the massive big pharma vaccination pushes across the world, behind the WHO, behind the IMF, behind the WEF. It's the same people. It's the CEOs of the BlackRocks, of the Vanguards, of the State Streets. They're all entangled, they're all entwined, all interwoven. They're all the same people on these lists. All the same people at Bohemian Grove. All the same people. And I would just ask, are you okay with that? Are you okay with that? Those that are in control of the vast resources of our world, those who seem to be calling the shots and telling us how our existence and how our world is going to be run, those are the people who are least credible out of all of us. People. And all of them, they're all in bed together. I mean, you can prove it. It doesn't even take... I mean, I know, I'm preaching to the converted, right? So that's the reason why I wanted to create this MYGA space tonight, which is about the Great Awakening for Dummies, in the hope that people would bring their friends and their families, or show their friends and the families the replays of this MYGA, because it really does ask that question. Because a lot of the other stuff, right, like I think that is a common value, that we're all against nonces, right? We're all against the most despicable and evil and spiteful and vile creatures on this earth. We can all unite against that. I feel that's an incredibly powerful approach. Because even if we go to what we would call is very obvious to us, like what is going on in that very poisonous, toxic artistry in our skies, even that is open for debate. All right? And I know it isn't to us because it seems so obvious, but again, we're already further down the road in our knowledge of what's really going on in this world. You could say things like, even like sunscreen and even like how that's created so many different types of skin cancer since it's been in mass use. Even that, again, or what the poison in food, or all of the other aspects of our society that we have become so aware of and have become second nature. Sometimes they're often very, very open to interpretation, and people can find flaws in that because they're able to find the pseudoscience and the websites that debunk it all. And I just feel that this common ground would be a useful, cohesive galvanizing vehicle for us to get all of these factors, all of these wrongs in the world, and address them back to the people, to the culprits, to those responsible. Because I feel that that's something common man and common woman can get behind. You know? That's a banner that no one can argue with, can they? So if you're watching this and you're thinking there's someone out there that you would like to bring to this MYGA space, then share the link with them. Share the link and tell them that if they ever really wanted to wake up from this illusion, from this superficial layer of reality that is full of deception, if they wanted to break out of that, then here you go. This might just be what they're looking for. And if you're already aware, which I'm sure you are because you're tuning into this, and I am preaching to someone who is already converted, then come along anyway, because it's going to be a fucking laugh. Because it is utter inversion. It is utter chaos. And in that is absurdity that can only be received as like comic. It's hilarious how fucking absurd it's all become. So I feel personally in service to myself, to my family, to the divine, to God, to source, to our earth, to Mother Nature, to our brothers and sisters who can't see the wood through the trees yet. And I'm quite comfortable in that duty because it feels good. It feels right. It feels aligned. And as much as I'm saying this to you, I'm saying it to me because it's just another way to remember not to give up. Not to give up on this earth, not to give up on ourselves, not to give up on our brothers and sisters. And to see this as our quest. To support, to fuel, to ignite the Great Awakening in whatever way we can. It's fun, really, isn't it? What an adventure. What a quest. So maybe I'll see you tonight on MYGA. Maybe not. Who knows? That's for you to do. Ciao for now.